I had built a bit of a personal profile as an entrepreneur prior to the 2008, 2009 global financial crisis. I was doing well. I owned a few businesses. I had about 40 staff. And then my two biggest clients defaulted on over $1 million each and just destroyed me. And I ended up having to lay off 38 of 42 staff, and just horrendous. And the last thing I wanted was to have smiling images of me everywhere going, yeah, everything's great. So I basically got rid of most of my online presence at that point. And then talking to Dan about helping him bring KPI to Asia. And I was like, I'm not allowed to be a secret person bringing program called Key Person of Influence, but am I? And he's like, no, I really need you to build your profile up again. So started doing that. And I was also looking for KPIs. How could I help them get more exposure? And another thing that was kind of frustrating me is I've been based in Asia for 20 years. The world's obsessed with Silicon Valley. And yet there's so many cool entrepreneurs doing cool stuff that just don't get any coverage. And it was really frustrating me because I knew these cool people and I thought they should be getting exposure. So I wrote to people like Forbes and Inc. and Esquire, a few people, and said, look, I'm this business guy. I've got a great network. I've written for a few publications in the past. I will feature these entrepreneurs. I'll do like a monthly profile of entrepreneurs doing cool stuff in Asia. And it's been about 10 years. I still haven't heard back from them, but I imagine that, they're busy. They're like kind of thought, okay, I'm going to have to lower my expectations a bit. I lowered it and I went through like a second tier magazine, and the second tier magazine came back straight away and they said, yeah, we've actually read your publication. We'd love to have you, but instead of monthly, could you do weekly? Because we're kind of short on content. And so I facetiously wrote back, what about daily? And they went, yeah, that'd be great. Thanks. And I so now, but then I thought, well, this is kind of an interesting thing, because if I could actually do an interview with someone daily, that would be amazing network. So I ended up having to I systemize this whole thing where people would get a Google Doc. So you, Ronzi, would get an email from somebody you know saying, hey, I think you should be getting more publicity for what you're doing. You fill in the answers to these questions. You recommend 3 people you know that are doing cool stuff but are under-recognized. They would then automatically get emails from you, and like this whole thing kind of spawned off. And today we've done like 3,000 interviews with people, and people get amazing results from it. An idea from my wife about something that I'd seen. We were chatting about it, and basically came up with this idea of doing a micro podcast. And a micro podcast basically is there's one question and there's one answer. So that basically we target, it used to be entrepreneurs, it's now broader to leaders. And the question is something along the lines of, what's the most important leadership lesson that you've learned? So what happens now is people go to this website, they fill in their details, they upload their photo, they press a record button, they answer that. They've got up to 4 minutes to answer that. They hit submit. It goes off to my editor, tops and tails it, sticks some music, puts it out, and that's it. People love listening to it. In fact, when Tesla launched in Singapore, for some reason, our podcast ended up as being the first podcast that they shows on the Tesla thing, Callum Connects. And because it's kind of like little bite-sized clips of goodness of people's key lessons. And again, it's just me being really lazy, but helping
And
people get.
it's so unique, because what you've done, if someone came to me and said, I want you to help me do a podcast, everything you've done are things that I would advise against. A podcast is so easy to consume. The person is connected to your brand for that long. So make it as consumable as possible. But also, the biggest power of a podcast is this conversation and this relationship building that happens. It's like a business development tool. You've got to be there, because if you're having all these people there, you can create these relationships, and you've kind of done exactly the opposite. And you're not the first person, by the way, There's lots of people, and they remind me when they come on the show, you suggested I do the opposite, and I've done the opposite, and it worked for me.